So this was the private room that I was in. As you can see, it has its own shower, and to the very right is the actual isolation tank. It has a handle on the door as well as a pool noodle in case you want to prop the door open for a little bit more light. The actual tank itself is pitch black dark, as you can see, and it has about 10 inches of water filled with Epsom salt. Hey guys, it's Vanessa, and in this video I'm going to be talking about my first time experience using a sensory deprivation tank at a local float center. So before I go into my experience, I just wanted to give a little bit more background on exactly what it is, as I know that there are a few people that have never heard of it before, or you may have heard of it and are interested in the experience and kind of what it's about. So just to kind of backtrack a little bit, when I first heard about sensory deprivation tanks, I was like, who in their right mind would do that? Like, literally, it's depriving you of your senses. So you don't have your sight because you're pretty much placed in a dark tank that has no crack of light whatsoever. So no light is seeping in. And there's no sound because you have earplugs, and the tank itself, no audible sound going on, so it's just basically your thoughts. And that to me was scary in itself, but the more I kept reading about it, the more I got intrigued. Recently I saw a Groupon deal for it for the Elevate Float Center in Valencia or Santa Clarita, and I decided to try it because I was like, for 30 bucks when it's originally, I think it was like 70 bucks for one float session, I was like, I might as well try it. Now is the time. So I bought it, and I was really excited to set an appointment, even though of course closer to, I kind of started to get a little nervous just because I am a little bit claustrophobic and I really hate the dark. Not too fearful in general, but and even just those two don't really bother me so much, but I do get a lot of anxiety when I'm in a situation like that for too long. Now, just to kind of give you a little bit more information on floating in general. So again, like I said, it's in a tank. Now, different float centers have it set up pretty much the same, just maybe the protocol could be a little bit different. The float center that I went to, they use 1,000 pounds of Epsom salt, which helps you float naturally. So it's not like you have to fight to float. You really can just relax your body and your head, and you will naturally float because that's how much salt is in there. Now, I got a brochure, so I'm going to read off just a little bit more information. That way you can kind of get a better idea of the whole process. The buoyancy that the salt gives helps you kind of fight gravity, if you will. So it helps relieve the stress and strain that you normally get with pressure points. Like say, for example, if you're lying on a bed and in your joints and your muscles. So it definitely has some added healing benefits there. And in regards to like how well they clean it, because I know that was my concern, because you do float naked. At least it's highly recommended that you do so, just because clothes can be restricting and it kind of takes away from the experience. You can float with a bathing suit at some centers that I know of, but for the most part they highly recommend that you float nude. So obviously I was like, well, how clean can it be? So they do clean their water after each floater, so after basically each person. And they have the highest grade of filtration units in the tanks that clean out the tanks. And it filters the water down to 1 micron, which is smaller than a skin cell. So they use a lot of UV sterilization, ozone injection systems to really make sure that the water is as pristine as possible, which is why you are basically going into the center and you're taking 2 showers. So the first shower is before you get into the tank. It's just a rinse off. It's like 1 minute. And then you just want to make sure that you put your earplugs in before you get into the shower. That way no water is getting lodged in there. At least my center provided earplugs. I think most places do. If not, you might have to bring your own. But pretty much put your earplugs in before you go into the shower, rinse off, and very important to make sure that your face is completely dry. Now the reason why is because water is going to start to bead on your face, and once you get into the tank, you're going to have the urge to like wipe it off your eyes or whatnot, and you're touching your face with the salt water, which can potentially get into your eye, and of course it's just going to be a big old mess. So pretty much this particular float center that I went to, the Elevate Float Center, they did an orientation with me really quick. It wasn't even 10 minutes, just kind of explaining different protocols. If I panic, what to do. If I do get salt water in my eye, they have like a bottle of reverse osmosis water to kind of wash it out. So they were really prepared, and they were really hands-on and helpful, and I totally loved my experience, particularly with them, obviously. And they provided everything. So they provided Q-tips, a towel, a little packet of Vaseline in case you have any cuts and stuff like that. Now, before you go into the float center itself, they do have a few guidelines that they don't want you to do. So they don't want you to shave at least 3 to 4 hours before you go in. Reason being, again, you're going to be immersed in salt water. So any nicks, cuts, fresh, like a fresh shave, it's gonna sting the heck out of you. So to avoid that, they just recommend that you don't shave right before you go in. They also recommend that you don't take any kind of caffeine like soda, coffee, just because it obviously is a stimulant. It's going to keep you up, and it's kind of going to, it's going to take away from the experience of you being actually relaxed and enjoying it. Don't float on an empty stomach or on a full stomach. So you don't want to be either or, you want to be just right in the middle, but your appetite is well enough to where you can kind of last for 2 hours. Because the first time floaters, I guess their time that they're in the tank is a little under 2 hours, where repeated floaters can kind of get away with it in 90 minutes. I was there for, my session alone was 75 minutes, but I was there for a little under 2, considering the shower and the orientation and things like that. So going back to the whole process, so after you take your first shower, you're going to get into the tank and you're going to close the door. Now, like I said, I'm scared of the dark, so they do have like a pool noodle that you can kind of put on the handle to kind of keep the door ajar so that little light comes in. But, after a while, I was like, I actually want to experience the whole entire thing for what it is. So really being in the dark and really not hearing sound and stuff like that. So the door was closed for me all the way. I honestly am surprised, like I didn't panic. I kind of just didn't really think about it. I was just kind of in the moment, was just trying to center myself and my body and float. There are different positions that you can do that can make you more comfortable. I noticed that if I had my hands like this, like kind of like behind my head, that was pretty comfortable as well, and it kind of opened up the chest a little bit, which was nice. For the most part, I had my hands kind of like to the side where it's kind of at an angle but relax on the sides of my body. It was really nice. I was immersed maybe like right to here, so like the water obviously covered my ears, but it kind of stopped like right here. When your session's up, there's like a soft little music that plays just to kind of alert you that your time is up and that you can take your second shower. When I got out of the shower, I felt so heavy because there was so much salt on me. So even up to now, like my hair is still kind of like dry and like crispy to me, even though I washed it like 3 times. That's just how much salt there was. Now, pretty much, just to kind of answer the question of why people even do these tanks in the first place, it kind of really just helps you de-stress if you have anxiety, or even just like need a quiet place to clear your mind. So now to my experience, my personal experience with the sensory deprivation tank. Going in was fine. Like I said, I closed the door, was centered myself. It did take me a while. Obviously, I didn't have any kind of sense of time, so I don't know roughly how long it took me, but it felt like it took me a while to like have my mind just kind of be at peace with where I was. So my mind just didn't turn off for whatever reason. I was just so stimulated. I wasn't really scared. I wasn't thinking too much about you know, the space or anything like that. The tank itself is pretty big. Like I can raise my hand up all the way and I wouldn't even hit anything. And I can even extend my arms, you know, out, you know, straight to the sides, and, you know, I can barely touch the walls. So it did give a lot of space. And obviously I didn't have, I couldn't hear anything. So I can hear my heartbeat, which wasn't really distracting like you would think. It was kind of soothing because I was just kind of matching my breaths with the, you know, the amount of beats that my heart was doing. And, you know I fell asleep, but not like asleep, but kind of like in and out of sleep, where you're just kind of in that lull before you actually go to sleep, or moments where you're sleeping and you kind of jerk, you know, you jerk and you're awake. So it was kind of like that, but it was kind of hard for me to really go into a deep sleep just because I was, you know, in water and I was floating. But when I was doing my research on, you know, the sensory deprivation tanks, a lot of people were saying that you kind of have to do it multiple times in order to get the rhythm and get the idea of how to meditate a little bit faster. Since this was my first time, it did take me a little longer than I thought I would to kind of get to the Zen zone, if you will. Overall, my experience was interesting. I mean, I didn't hate it and I didn't love it, if that makes sense. Now, the reason why I didn't hate it was because I did feel really relaxed and refreshed after. When I got out, my body felt lighter. Going in, I had like knots like in my neck and my shoulders, and I didn't really feel that weight when I left. So I did feel refreshed. I felt a little bit more energized. I felt like my mind had like a spark of energy. The reason why I didn't love it was because, obviously, being my first time, I thought that I would kind of get into like the Zen mode and kind of experience all the other things that I was reading about, even though I know every experience is different. But you know, the whole like, oh, I feel like I'm floating into space, and people, you know, hallucinating or having like dreams. I didn't really have any of that. But I did like the sensation of floating and not having like the pressure points. Also, again, I didn't love it in regards to the price point. Now, I got a good deal on it. Again, I got it off of Groupon, but regularly, I think each float session can range, depending on where you go, from like $60 to $90, which to me is overpriced for what it is. Now, for some, it's beneficial, which is great, and more power to you. But again, I mean, for me not really achieving what I thought I would the first time, I kind of don't think I would necessarily pay that much to go again. However, if I did find another deal that was similar to what I got, then I think I would try it again. Overall, it wasn't as scary as I thought it would be. I do highly recommend that everyone tries it at least once, because again, every experience is different. You might love it, you might hate it, you might really not notice a difference. Another suggestion that I want to make is that if you do try it, to bring lotion and water to drink, because the salt just like sucks up all the moisture for me. Like my skin felt dry, my face felt dry and tight. So lotion definitely helps because it kind of puts the moisture back, and of course water just to kind of, you know, and if you feel dehydrated, it's just good to have. I'm going to show a clip of the actual room that I was in. So that's another thing that I should add, is that you're in a private room. So if you're like, oh my god, I have to be nude, and you know, it's not in front of people. It's a private room that has its own shower and its own tank, and you're pretty much good to go. And if you've tried it yourself, please let me know how your experience was. I would love to know. I'm very curious. You could just leave a comment below, and that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.